What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Chris. Welcome back to Sicat Kickboxing Club. And today, guys, it's going to be a little bit different. I want to talk to you about mental health in relation to kickboxing. All right, guys, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel, like this video if you get value out of it, and share these videos to whoever wants to learn the art of kickboxing. I also run a podcast, the Speakeasy podcast right here. It's a martial arts and self-improvement podcast and a mental health podcast. If you want to check that out, you can get a lot of value out of it. I talk to like high-level fighters, to just practitioners, to hobbyists. So I'll get right into it, guys. I think this topic, it's going to be a little bit different from my other videos, just to kind of switch it up, because I think it's very important. It relates to why I started coaching, honestly, and why I started kickboxing in the first place. So a little bit of an anecdote, in a little bit of a backstory of mine. I was pretty much a drunk ever since I was 16 years old. Now, you know, whatever it caused it, maybe it was just a bad influence of friends, which had a lot to do with that, because you are your environment. Or it's inherited from my family. And this isn't like to blame anyone. It's just, you know, maybe like a theoretical kind of thing, but it doesn't matter. So I've been fighting with alcoholism pretty much all my life, through my teens and my 20s and half of my 30s. So I'm 39 now, and I quit like mid 30s, honestly. So that wasn't too long ago. That was like a few years ago. But so when I'm gonna get straight into like kickboxing. I don't want to bore you guys, but I've gotten to trouble like pretty much all my life. I've gotten a few DUIs, just for full transparency, and that one I regretted because I could have really hurt someone, killed myself, but most importantly, you know, hurt other people, which now that I'm doing martial arts, and that's what it's all about. You want to give to people and be kind to people. But back when I was in my 20s, man, I was a troublemaker. I was getting into fights. I was getting like bar fights, you know, because I was a drinker, and that's where I'd spend all my time with my other drinking buddies. And then we just start fights for no reason. And mind you, I just started like, I guess this was in between before I started martial arts. So I started martial arts around my, like, I guess you could say early 20s, mid to mid 20s. So like before that, I had no self-control, and obviously I was on substances like alcohol, so I was just all over the place. Finally, I got introduced to boxing first, right? So I was working at a restaurant job, and a coach that was into boxing, and he was an amateur fighter, actually got me into boxing. I was interested because for no reason at all. Actually, it wasn't even like to improve my life, honestly. It was just to be like, oh, that's so cool. I was still drinking at the time, but I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like I watched Mike Tyson and, you know, Manny Pacquiao on TV, and I just kind of want to be like those guys, and I want to beat people up and stuff like that. So he asked me to, come to the gym. I was really, you know, cool with him. I went to his gym. I started boxing, and it gave me a true reality check. I mean, I wasn't sparring back then. I was just hitting the bag. But man, I thought I was gonna die. Like I just thought I was gonna die. And I was doing jabs. I was doing simple jabs. I had my hands down. It was sloppy. You know, he was videotaping it. It was just, And right then and there, I had the biggest epiphany and the biggest reality check that I ever had. Just from that moment, I still remember it. I was like, oh, I'm not shit. Like, I don't know anything. Considering that I was getting into bar fights when I was 20s against other people that didn't know anything, that were just as drunk as I am, and getting into bar fights as well, I realized at that time that the way he was showing me the proper ways, I was like, oh, this is how you fight. And then, you know, he showed me a little bit of like sparring, friendly sparring. And I was like, oh, if I ever face this guy, and yes, back then he was an amateur fighter, and I had this excuse, like, if I were to ever face this guy, yeah, I'd get completely messed up by him, right? Complete full transparency. So I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the workout aspect of it. I didn't really go into it thinking that I was going to be a professional fighter or anything like that, even let alone an amateur fighter or anything, right? I just wanted like good cardio. I figured like I'd change it up a little bit. And like I said, I was still drinking. So moving forward, you know, when you're into alcohol and when you're addicted to substances, it feels like a prison loop. Like what I mean by that is that you do the same thing every single day, right? So what I do is that I drink every night and then I'd go to work. I was a functioning alcoholic, so I still made it to work on time and I still made it to like classes on time, like boxing classes. But right when it came down to about 5, 6, 7 at night or late afternoon, that's when I drink a full bottle of whiskey. And by the end of the night, I'd be blacked out. Just to give you a little insight, that's what kind of a drinker that I was. And man, that was, I can't even fathom, and it wasn't even too long ago, right? Like, even if I were to look back in my 20s, it just seemed like yesterday, but if I was the phantom, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, I'm surprised that, and in true honesty, I'm surprised that I'm not either in jail or dead. Like, I'm very, very blessed and I'm very thankful, and thank you, universe, for that, right? But yeah, so going back to the mental health of it, I really, so fast forwarding, I got really good at like hitting the bag and, you know, doing a lot of the techniques that I show on the videos. And that gave me true confidence. Now, what I want to talk about is, number one, the snowballing effect of what happens when you start a great hobby, like boxing, in this case, kickboxing, is that because the snowball effect, when you get good at a technique, if you stick to it long enough, that's why I always say repetition is king. Because if you happen to like videotape yourself, because you know, you want to look good on camera and you want to see your progress, and it just motivates you. It motivates you like crazy because you're progressing, especially when you start. There's this big progression because you absolutely know nothing about kickboxing, right? And that's just with everything, with every activity. If you're playing the piano, you absolutely start from scratch. And when you learn something, the compounding effect of that is and the gratification of that is very immediate. Like, you see immediate results because as you're learning and you're putting more reps, well, you went from nothing to now something, right? And then we'll talk about this a little bit later, but then when you get into maybe the higher level stages, then it becomes a smaller detail, which I'm working on my videos, right? It's a total progression. That's why I do my videos, from basics to like a progression when you start doing basics to getting to intermediate. So the snowballing effect, that's when it started hitting me. When I started looking at videos of myself like hitting the bag, or my coach would like tape me for his like social marketing and all that stuff, I noticed that I was like, oh man, my form is getting good. I was getting good, like my boxing, my movement, right? I was keeping my hands up, which looks even better, because if you see sloppy technique, it's just kind of like, yeah, you have your hands down here and then you're just swinging it all over the place. You don't know how to move your hip. You don't know how to move your hip properly, and it just looks sloppy. And usually when you videotape yourself, it doesn't look right, it's not right. Like, if it looks ugly, you're probably not doing it right? Like, that's what I think about in my sparring videos all the time. I think that, or before that, before I started getting really good, is that I look at my sparring videos because my coach would make me tape myself, right, with sparring with another guy. I thought I did really good, where I just looked like a complete like beginner, right? And I've been doing it for years. So there's that. The snowballing effect, when you, like I said, when you start compounding those techniques, you start gaining more confidence in your skills in kickboxing, which leads, and here's where the snowball effect comes from, which leads into, oh, I'm doing really good and I feel really good about myself, so I'm going to start eating healthy and do other things that connect to whatever good that you're doing, right? And that compounds the other way too. I noticed that when I was drinking, it kind of came to like, I didn't do any like hardcore drugs, you know? I mean, I guess you could say alcohol is like pretty hardcore, to be honest with you, in my experience, and especially the way I drank. But nothing like heroin or meth or anything. I just stuck to straight alcohol. But that snowballs into other behaviors that you don't want to do, like fighting at bars, right? Or maybe you might be disrespecting your friends when you're drunk and they don't want to be around you anymore, and you feel like crap in the morning because of the raging hangover you have, and you just do a whole bunch of stuff that you regret that you don't remember because you were blacked out from the other night. And yeah, that goes the other way too in negative aspect. But when you start doing kickboxing, or for the most part, any activity, because, you know, I'm just like, just do whatever you can. It doesn't have to be kickboxing. It could be anything. Just move your body, okay? And get good at whatever you're doing. And then it will have that snowball effect where it ripples throughout your life, your lifestyle, okay? You start eating better, your relationships, you feel good about yourself, so you start treating people more kindly. Like, you're a lot friendlier to people. Why? Because you're more self-confident about yourself, all right? So how I looked at it was that being a alcoholic, and obviously this has a lot to do with the mental health aspect, right? What I was initially doing was I was hiding a lot of pain through alcohol. I was hiding a lot of self-esteem issues. I needed to mask it by liquid courage, right? We've all heard of that term where it's like you need alcohol to maybe speak to that attractive girl that you've been wanting to talk to, or maybe date, and you just need that crutch. So what happens too with alcohol is that it's a neurodepressant. I read a lot of books, and I'm not, you know, like a doctor or anything or a neuroscientist, but I got it from Andrew Huberman's podcast that it's a neurodepressant. So when you drink alcohol, it just doesn't stop from your hangover. It goes into your blood-brain barrier, and then it depresses you for not even just 3 days when you have that hangover, for 2 or 3 weeks, okay? But anyway, sorry, I was kind of going off the drift there, but you kind of get my point. So that's number one, like it trickles to all your it ripples through all of your lifestyle. Your relationship starts getting better because you start treating yourself better, okay? Like you do good things for yourself just because you're getting good at something, and you want to parlay that, meaning you want to connect it to other things that are good. That's just how it works. It's called the Matthew effect, where the richer get richer, right? So in this term, the more positive things you do, the more positive things will compound, like I was saying, and then obviously it goes the other way. So that's number one. Number two, I'm gonna talk about this because it's a big deal that I talked about in my other video, but I wanna emphasize it. A lot of you guys, I did a poll on my channel, why you wanna do kickboxing, and the majority of it is because you wanna learn self-defense. Good. The reason being is that you can just feel it. I'm gonna start off with this, and it just popped into my mind that, say if you're walking to like a grocery store, say like a Walmart, you know, or Target, and somewhere that you kind of like, you're alone, it's dark, and you feel insecure, you feel more confident, and it's your vibe about you, knowing that you can defend yourself practically and in the most efficient way possible, right? Not to say that you're actually gonna use, you know, what you learn in kickboxing, but even just knowing that psychologically, it's gonna make your body, like your body posture, different when you're going places. So here's another fun fact, is that people will automatically judge you they'll make an automatic judgment about you before you say anything to them. So if you're walking to a grocery store and you're just kind of, you know, you have your chin up, you know, you're not doing too much like a Conor McGregor walk. You're not like doing this because, you know, it's like fake confidence or whatever. But if you're kind of walking, right, you're kind of like minding your business, you have your chin up, you have kind of like, you have your shoulder up, and you're just like minding your business. And you know, you're just kind of like, you're not like dogging anyone, you're not looking at anyone because you know kickboxing or anything. It shows a lot about you. And what that shows, what that signals to other people, evolutionary wise, is that, oh, this guy must know something, that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He's like, they're thinking like, oh, he looks like he just knows what he's doing. right? It's kind of hard to explain, but people know that you just have that confidence in you and you have that quote unquote it factor about you. The it factor being, yeah, like you have great, good enough self-esteem, you're confident about yourself, you know what you're doing, like you're kind of headed in the direction where you want to go. Your shoulders aren't down like this, because people read that, I promise you, especially with bullies. I was reading another book, I believe it was Lost Connections, that bullies, just natural, because there are people out there, they'll test you, right? They'll kind of like bump into you, and then depending on what you do and depending how you react, they're gonna react towards that. So if you're like, oh man, you know, you could say sorry, but then say sorry with conviction, meaning like it's gonna show in your body. It's gonna be like, if they bump into you, you're gonna be like, hey, I'm sorry, man. And then that's what I mean by conviction. But if they bump into you, you're like, oh, sorry. Right? You have your kind of chin down, your shoulders slumped, you're kind of like small, not to get all red pilled and manosphered, you know, whatever. But then it's kind of, they know, they can read your body language. Like, body language is so important. I would argue it's more important than what you actually say to someone, right? At least for sure, be respectful of people. It's more important than what you actually say to people. So there's that. So my point is that you're more confident without trying to act being confident, right? It just seeps into your body. People just know because of the skill that you know. And the funny thing is that it's completely unconscious, right? Like, you don't have to think about being confident. You're just kind of like doing your business. And since what you were taught in the gyms, if it's a good gym, and if you were taught by the right coach, then he's gonna tell you, he's gonna check you real quick if you're acting up. But yeah, he's gonna check you real quick as if you're ever acting like a bully or anything like that. But with that does come self-confidence, all right? That's point number 2. Point number 3, guys, is just, it helps you deal with stress just in general, right? We all know the cliche of like, oh yeah, I wanna hit a bag because I wanna let all my stress out. Well, it's true. When you train and practice at the gym or anywhere else, or just train, hit a bag, you got a bag with you, right? Like, man, hitting a bag after you let it out, after maybe you have a good sparring session, or after you do the basics on a bag and you're kind of like moving around, and then you're depleted after, right? And then you're cool down, you have your hands up, you're like, yeah, I did it. Like you just went like even 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes of just hard like rounds, 3-minute rounds on the bags. You just feel good about yourself. And we all know we've all heard it before, like the endorphins that you get out of it, right? Like that's the main thing. That's what makes you feel good. And the dopamine and all the neurotransmitters that come out of it. Well, that goes a long way because it sets the tone for your day. That's why I always like to work out in the morning. Now, work out whenever you can, but it just works for me. Number 1, because I automatically got a win, right? Like when I get that out of the way, if it's my first thing in the morning, I make it a priority, that's a win. I can literally do nothing the rest of the day and I'll be okay. I'll be like, well, I got my workout in and I'm just healthier for it. Like health is your number 1 asset. What they say, a man wants 1,000 things, but when he gets sick, he only wants one thing, right? Like that's a Socrates quote or something. And that's health. Because if you're not healthy, what's all the money in the world not gonna do? I mean, what's all the money in the world gonna do for you if you're just in pain and, you know, you have all these chronic illnesses that's wrong with you, right? So that's one thing, man. It's health, fitness, and it's a good way not to get bored with your workouts, okay? So when you're hitting the bag, like I said, you just feel good. You're like in a free flow state. You're not thinking about anything. Yeah, you're probably thinking about your problems. That's why you're hitting the bag. But after a long enough time scale, you're like working on the technique. You're not thinking about anything. You're thinking about your movement. Yeah, you could probably think about your ex-girlfriend. That's even fine. Like, oh man, my ex-girlfriend broke up would be for no reason, you know? And then you could just hit the bag. But eventually you're gonna go into this like flow state that it doesn't even matter. Like, it just sets the tone for your day. You feel good about yourself. You got your workout in. That's a win within itself. If you do it in the morning or even if you do it at night, that's a way to finish off your day, right? So yeah, it's a win-win situation for everything. And yeah, and I always had, you know, just on a side note, I always had difficulties telling you guys that, like, you know, I had to use alcohol as a crutch for like liquid courage. I always had a problem like talking to women and being social, right? Because I didn't know how to act. Like my body language was off. Going back to it, my body language was off. But now, you know, after a few kickboxing, not just that, but, you know, reading books, and mostly kickboxing though, because that's why I do these channels, to, you know, help you guys out. And that's why I'm doing this video. After kickboxing, it honestly, I have this term just to end it, because I wanted to get straight to the main points. I'll probably do a part 2 because I have more to it, but, you know, I don't want to make this video too long because my videos are long enough. Like you want to just kind of, yeah, be the embodiment of what you are. You make it an identity. You're a martial artist. So you don't do things that martial artists don't do. To me, what a martial artist / kickboxer is self-discipline, being healthy, treating people with kindness, helping people out, coaching people, helping people, like defending people, like if they were to ever get in trouble in the quote unquote streets or something, right? Sticking up for people. That's what it means to me. And that's what I embody now. Okay, that's what I learned mostly from alcohol, is that I can give, mostly from kickboxing after quitting alcohol, is that I can give back like I'm trying to do now with these videos, right? I don't get paid for these videos. I have no sponsors. That's why I'll kind of, you know, like I'll put up the products that I actually use, by the way, and put a Amazon affiliation link, because I don't get paid for them. I just love doing these videos to help people out. And hopefully you get epiphany in your head and a light bulb clicks and you're like, damn, like that's a good outlet if I'm ever going through a struggle in my life. All right. So again, yeah, I kind of made it an identity. And what I was going to say was, I kind of feel like alcohol, when I was drinking alcohol, and then when I was doing kickboxing at the same time, martial arts, let's just call it, because I was doing other martial arts like jiu-jitsu and stuff and grappling. Martial arts, it kicked or put the chokehold on my drinking. And honest to me, and I know, you know, this is probably going to cause some controversy because of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, they have their own way of doing things. But for me, I defeated alcohol. And I come from a family of alcoholics. It's in my family history. And I've been drinking ever since I was 16 every single night, just to give you a vivid picture, okay? And I truly, it's been what, maybe 4 or 5 years now that I quit. And there's no signs of me going back. Like, I'm not going back because it doesn't serve my purpose to, number one, make these videos. It doesn't serve any purpose for what I want to do in the future. There's no room for it in my future. And that's, I all accredit that through kickboxing, martial arts. That's why I do a podcast. Show links down below. You'll get a lot of value with that. And yeah, I'll do a part 2 later on because I have so much more to say. But those are the main ones that like really hit me. I'm doing this off the cuff, like, but I wanted to do it without any scripts, which I don't do in my videos anyway. But I want to do it without any scripts so that I hit all the important points why I started doing kickboxing, and hopefully, you know, you can relate to that. Okay. So again, guys, like this video if you got some value out of it. Share these videos to anyone that wants to learn kickboxing, and if you haven't done so yet, subscribe. And guys, I'm rooting for you. I know that life can get hard sometimes. You don't have to be like a substance abuser. You can just, you know, a lot of people have different problems, individual problems, and I understand that. But find an outlet. It doesn't have to be kickboxing. It doesn't have to be martial arts even. Just find an outlet to where you could be a better version of yourself. And like I always like to say, be consistent and give it some time. Don't just quit because, oh, like it was hard the first 1 or 2 days or even the first month. Like give it like 2 months and then you could decide like, okay, it's not for me. I'll move on to the other thing. Okay. So, yeah, guys, I'll see you on the next one, and thank you for watching.